point.
So, what do you think of Liam Gallagher?
I don't entirely trust him either.
No.
He's said
he sold his soul originally.
Yeah. Well, there's pictures of Liam flashing up the old devil horn.
Yes, there is.
There's pictures of Liam sat next to Jimmy Savile.
There's old pictures.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but he's talking anti-Coviet now.
He is, and I would like to think he's sincere.
Yeah.
I do wonder if many of these artists reach a point where they're no longer considered assets and they're allowed a little bit of freedom to speak their mind.
However, I'm wondering if, because you didn't hear anything really from the two brothers, for a long time, did we? Maybe they ran out of money and they needed a paycheck. So if they're now controlled opposition, I wonder how many of these artists that we all know and love from the 90s, early 2000s
Right Said Fred.
are running. Yeah, Right Said Fred. But I wonder how much money they've got in their bank accounts these days. I wonder how much they would succumb to an offer, whether it be controlled opposition or, to push some other
we can only speculate on that, can't we?
Yeah, that's it. But, it appears that they are speaking some truth.
Pull that out of the stands. And
whichever works.
Yeah, whichever works. Let's get Mark Devlin back.
What are you comfortable with, Mark?
But it's going to say Mark Devlin under you, if that's all right, Andy PG. So Mark Devlin's on the right above sofa.
So what's with all the rabbits?
Well, the concept which we came up with was every week we sort of do different subjects on here, and we call...
we always cover the Coviet Union first. That's what we always cover every week first. Like, we put a slideshow together, and then we do a kind of themed show each week. Obviously, you're our theme. You're our guest this week. Mark talking about the occult music industry, but I mean, we've done what Antarctica. We did Bill Gates, the big pharma, and vegan
so the idea is,
movement.
Rather than getting stuck down one rabbit hole, I had the concept of presenting the whole rabbit, like the entire rabbit. Yeah. So I started doing some designs based around rabbits.
My daughters wouldn't go much on the picture of the guy holding the white rabbits there because we got 2 pet white rabbits for him just before Christmas.
I actually
imagine the rumours that's going to start now.
Maybe this one is better for the kids.
Mark Devlin said he's got 2 white rabbits. He's telling you.
He's got a double white rabbit. I reckon this one's better for the kids, personally. So, right. And anyway, enough of my silly T-shirt designs. We've got Mark Devlin in the studio. Let me turn the lights up so we can see Mark over there a little bit better. We've been asked to talk about Brian Harvey. Have you been following the Brian Harvey story, Mark?
E17.
I have, yeah.
What are your thoughts about what's going on there, mate?
Well, Brian Harvey seems to be sincere and genuine to me. He seems to be someone that is genuinely in fear of his life for things that he's discovered. The only problem is, in the videos that he's been putting out, he's quite incoherent about everything, and he goes off at
It's
tangents.
all very hazy.
He rambles, and it's very difficult to keep a track on what he's trying to communicate. He's never actually come out and openly said what it is he's discovered, although he's very strongly hinted that he's seen evidence of pedophilia and child sex trafficking within the music industry. He's certainly called out his old manager of E17, Tom Watkins, who died last year. He was also the manager of the Pet Shop Boys and Bros. And he's had a few things to say about Tom Watkins.
I have wondered if the whole child trafficking, pedophilia, Pizzagate, all of that stuff that's come out like very recently, like in 2020, all the Save Our Children, because everyone's been, the truth movement in inverted commas have been researching that since it came out. But I mean, for the vast majority, people found that out in 2020. I wonder if this is just a controlled opposition. Another, you've got Brian Harvey and people talking about it, and it's just so out in the open now. Or maybe it's along with the agenda to try and normalise it all. Like a ruse. Yeah, like a ruse, yeah. Or, like we've got movies like
Turn my mic off, sorry.
Netflix movies like Cuties coming out, or is it just another move to just normalise the whole...
There could be aspects of that going on, but I do think with Brian Harvey that
he's talking the truth.
Yeah. I mean, he went out in the alley and smashed up that gold plaque that he got for E17's album and said, this is what the music industry means to me. Fuck your music industry.
That's probably all he had left of the E17 days. I doubt he's got any of the money. If he earned much at all.
Probably not. But, he's got mental health issues. He's been sectioned a few times. He's living off
God
benefits.
knows what he's been given, yeah.
Yeah, and he tells this story of being taken into a secret room behind the manager's office in a West End nightclub by Daniela Westbrook, who he was going out with in the 90s. They were an item, and she took him to this club, and there was a secret wall, and they went behind this wall, and he says there were a couple of kids that were sat with adults, and there was all kinds of
shenanigans
stuff going on. And he said his mind keeps going back to the image of this young girl that's being seduced by this man in this secret room behind a bloody door, you know.
See, I heard that people were trying to implant memories in his head because he was mentally unstable. I heard people were trying, kind of egging him on, saying, "Oh yeah, don't you remember this? Don't you remember that?"
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of people around him trying to influence his.
It's a very tangled web. It goes into Bill Mahoney of Pie and Mash
that's
films.
right. Yeah, I'm not
Maloney. Sorry,
I'm not entirely. And he talks about David. They talk about David Icke being involved, and
and now Brian's calling out all kinds of names in the alternative scene, like Richie Allen and Brian Garish.
That's right,
and suggesting that they're all part of some mission to bring him down.
What do you think about that, then, Lance?
I think there's probably many things going on at once. With regards to Brian Harvey, I agree with Mark. It looks like, and with what in the comment section, he's trying to tell the truth. He's being targeted. They're trying to paint him. Yeah. Mental health is the first one to take people down with an accusation of
I'm surprised
sexual
they haven't sectioned
malevolence. Didn't he do a piss test live on camera to prove that all he'd been doing was smoking weed? Because they're saying, "Oh, you're a cokehead, you're a crackhead, you've lost your mind." And he's like, "Yeah, I have done that in the past." But I think he did a test live. Not like live, but he said, "I'm doing this test." Showed that he wasn't under the influence of those drugs. I don't know a lot about it apart from what I've been told by Millie,
Magix,
by Oma Beats, who's been following it closely. But it seems like he's being targeted. He seems like there's a lot of Max Clifford agents around him. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's a very ugly, tangled web.
Very shady. Let me try and find some of your excellently prepared slides here. Oh dear. Oh, that's going to bring me on to the next subject of Wiley. Wiley, the leading grime MC. I'm a bit of a fan of Wiley. I love Wiley. Sorry about these videos. I'm trying to get back to Mark Devlin's slide. Wiley, did you see the videos that he put out on Twitter last year?
Yeah, but he's been very quiet of late.
Well, what a surprise. After you say things like that, mentioning names that end in Steen, saying, "I haven't been at parties with young girls."
But he's been silenced, didn't he? So you've got to ask how he's been silenced. Has he been silenced with financial gain, or has he been silenced because someone's got something on him, or there's always or has he just succumbed?
I think he probably just told the truth.
Or has he been threatened?
What was the guy, David Wolf? He said his manager had basically taken $6 million of the revenue from all of his work. He said, those awards I got, I haven't got them.
Just another day at the office, isn't it?
Yeah, just another day at the office. Well, what was it? What's the film? Is it the Public Enemy film where there's a Berg or a Steen behind them, basically just taking all of the money? It's sort of an old story in the music industry, especially in hip hop, anyway. But right. The less said about that, the better. Right, here's the next slide, which we didn't even get to.
The Who, yeah.
The Who, not the Wuhan hoax organisation.
Yeah.
The original Who.
Exactly. So it's all about the lyrics from their song Won't Get Fooled Again. And I included this because it really speaks to the dynamic of social engineering. And this group would have been in a position to know. I personally feel that along with the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and certain other names on the London scene of the 60s, including early Pink Floyd, they were being used as social engineering assets with ties going into military intelligence, the Tavistock Institute and organisations such as this. So they would have known how the whole thing works. And in their song, they say, "There's nothing in the streets looks any different to me. Can't see there for you."
Oh, sorry.
And the slogans are replaced by the by, and the parting on the left is now the parting on the right, and the beards have all grown longer overnight. So they're talking about how these scenes that are considered to be grassroots and organic, like the hippie counterculture scene of the 60s, we're entrained to think that they just came from the youthful generation of the time wanting to push back against the establishment and express themselves naturally. But actually research has shown that there's so much evidence to prove that these were social engineering operations and they were deliberately contrived to change societal attitudes and the way people thought about things. And a study of the way this was done in the 60s with the hippie counterculture scene, the whole flower power thing, is a masterclass in the subject.
Sure.
And this lyric speaks to that. The beards have all grown longer overnight. So, fashions, the way people look, are all the products of these social engineers as well, along with music and cultural attitudes and attitudes towards sex and family and all these other things.
I wonder, Mark, who wrote the Who's lyrics? If it was them, or if they're handed song? Because I wonder how many artists actually write their own content these days.
Yeah.
Or back then. You never know who's actually.
There was a lot of
written what.
contention over the Beatles. And
Sure, absolutely.
Researchers have been going back and forth and speculating on whether it was possible for Lennon and McCartney to have written so many songs.
Yeah.
Mike Williams, Sage of Quay, did a brilliant presentation on this last year. It's 3.5 hours long.
If it's physically possible for them to
as
do
you
it.
said, Beatles, I randomly threw up this Andy Pandy comment. Alistair Crowley was on the Beatles cover too.
Yes, he was.
Yeah, he was. He was like
Sergeant Pepper, yeah.
Yeah, Sergeant Pepper. Didn't they also
There
have an
was
album
loads-
cover
there was
with loads
loads
of
of people on
dismembered babies?
Yeah, they did. Yesterday and Today. That was a compilation album of previous songs that had come out in 1966. And the original British sleeve for it, which was photographed by a guy named Robert Whittaker, an Australian photographer, had the Beatles in butcher's smocks.
That's it.
Covered in dismembered babies
Yeah.
with
Fetuses.
bits of meat hung over their shoulders.
It looked
what
like a
was the
Chinese
explanation
organ
for that
factory.
back then? What was the explanation?
It
for
was in the midst of the so-called avant-garde scene of the 60s, which was supposed to be pushing the artistic envelope as far as possible.
Postmodernism,
Right,
yeah.
So
Yeah.
again,
Yeah.
under artists,
That's what we were talking about in the psyops.
So you can get away with all kinds of things
because it's just
under that
artistic
label.
Yeah.
temperament.
It's
Yeah.
just art.
That's how
Yeah.
we've got to the stage now where someone like Marina Abramovich can call
precisely.
themselves an artist.
Precisely.
Yeah, what did
then
we
she
cover?
gets taken by
I'm
Bill Gates.
I'm doing exactly the same as occult practices, devil worshipping, spirit cooking, but I'm only doing it as art because
That's
I'm
it.
not putting the intention. She actually admitted.
She
go
actually
on.
said live on an interview. She said, "Yes, okay," because she was asked, "Okay, what you're doing is black magic," and she said, "Well, yes, kind of, but it's what environment you're creating which makes it dark black magic.
Just artistic.
So this is artistic temperament. If you're doing it in a ritualistic, temperament, then
Elton
it's-
John is a collector of what people would consider to be pedophilic art.
Yes.
No surprises there.
Pictures depicting
Yeah.
young children having sex. But because that's art, he's able to get away with it. And reportedly, he's travelled around the world with it in his luggage, and he gets pulled over and they question it, and he says it's just art. It's art. And so he's allowed to proceed. And Elton John and his partner David Furnish were allowed to adopt 2 baby boys a few years ago, despite the fact that Elton John is a stated occultist, and he's got a house full of occult books, dark occult books, and he collects pedophilic art. But apparently that wasn't a problem in those 2 being vetted and considered appropriate for adopting 2 baby
It's
boys.
absolutely fine. The same as like Woody Allen. Didn't he end up marrying
Woody Allen.
his stepdaughter, who he first met when she was 12
I've got to.
or something like that?
I believe so, yeah.
I
Am
will,
sort of
I
roughly
will
right
just
there?
interject, right? And I'm not defending these people's behaviour whatsoever. I'm just saying, Mark, in your latest Mark Passio interview, you asked Mark Passio if you could have one message to Bill Gates, what would it be? And the first thing he said, he paused for a second, the first thing he said was, your parents did a number on you.
Your parents were garbage.
So I
Yeah.
wonder how many of these people's parents did a number on them. Because can we actually
Well, all of
blame
them,
them?
probably.
Yeah, more often than
Can
not.
we blame them? Fully blame them. Obviously, we can blame people for their actions, but can we fully blame them if they were mind controlled and subliminally, trauma-based mind control, whatever it is? Can we fully blame them if they're acting in this way?
Well, you
If
make an
they haven't
interesting
been
point.
healed.
And it goes back to the earlier comment about Boris Johnson when he was a a young
A young
lad,
boy.
was told he was going to be Prime Minister one day. So you could make the argument that, oh, he had no choice, he was just born into it. But again, I'm sure Mark Passio would say that if you are putting harm into the world and if you are taking away people's rights and freedoms,
Natural law, you're breaking natural law.
people who just wanted to be left alone, who were doing no harm, and you came into their world and through coercion and violence attempted to take away their rights,
Regardless of what you've been exposed to, yeah?
then you have to be put down. You have to be
Held accountable.
stopped and held accountable,
Yeah.
held in full judgment for those actions. It doesn't make a difference whether you were mind controlled into doing it. It doesn't make a difference if you were blackmailed into doing it.
Sure.
You're still putting that physical harm into manifestation. And Passio talks often about order followers,
Yes, he
police and
does.
military.
Yeah, the
And he
worst,
says,
the worst.
He says that a police officer trying to make the claim that, oh, I did this because I was just following orders.
Doesn't
Someone of
cut
a
it.
higher
Doesn't
rank
cut it.
told me to put this harm into the world. Who bears the most moral culpability out of the person that gave the order and the individual that put it into physical
Person who took
manifestation?
the physical action.
Well,
in
the
the world.
person that actually made it happen bears the lion's share of the karmic judgment.
There we go.
Whether they were coerced into doing it, tricked into doing it, blackmailed into doing it, ordered to do it, doesn't
So-
make a difference.
So I said, was it last week on the show I said this? So what's currently going on now? Okay, we've got, so we call them, Master Lee from Iniganis, he calls them horizontalists. People like your Boris Johnsons and your, just people that just identify with the physical, they're just horizontal.
Hancock and them.
Yeah, they've got no interest in transcending.
Lord Schwab.
So we call it horizontalists. So what's going on now, I would say, is you've got the dark occultists, the dark Luciferians, using these horizontalists to, in their mind, get around natural law. That's what I think is going on. Because, like you said earlier, it's the person who takes the physical action. So, like an assassin, if you hire an assassin to take a murder contract out on someone, they're the ones pulling the trigger. They're the ones that are going to feel the most karmatic effect from the physical action taken in the world. So how many of these artists, musical artists, have been trauma-based, mind-controlled and subliminally mind-controlled? Or,
A lot of them would have been.
whatever, a lot of them, but they're still, in my mind, complicit and part of the mechanism.
They're still doing great harm.
Yeah, they're part
and
of the
they've got to be
mechanism.
they've got to be stopped from doing that harm
Yeah.
because it's getting into the minds of young people.
Younger
It's-
and younger as
Yep.
well.
It's affecting subliminally the thoughts and the perceptions and the mind states of millions of people around the world and helping to push agendas, evil agendas.
I mean, I was listening to Puff Daddy in the Family when I was 11, like all about the Benjamins. I mean, when I was 11 years old, because my older
Imagine
brother
what you'd
2
be
years older.
listening to now when you're 11 years old.
Yeah.
You'd be listening to Cardi
Oh,
B.
Mark, on
that's
that,
horrific.
what is that? The what is it? Wham, whap?
WAP, wet ass pussy.
What is your opinion on that?
What is it?
Wet
WAP.
ass
The,
pussy,
you know the
that-
Cardi B song?
I'm happy to say I've avoided it entirely.
It was the biggest song of last year.
Yeah.
She won awards for it. The beat was actually superb. It was a very good beat. And it was her and Megan Thee Stallion. And the song is called WAP, Wet Ass Pussy. And it's basically about being a whore.
It's
and
so derogatory
While
towards...
Dr. Seuss was getting banned.
this was
and-
being promoted.
Yeah, that was being held up
Yeah.
as like, just so empowering.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
doesn't surprise me.
But it's satanic.
Well, absolutely.
You know,
we broke
Azalea
down the
Banks
video.
was doing the same thing a few years ago. with
Who,
just-
Azalea Banks?
Yeah, just completely degraded, debased material.
Yeah.
And it was held up.
Was
One
that
of her
two,
tracks,
was that 212?
212,
Wasn't it Jay-Z that found her, though?
probably.
Yeah, I think it was Jay-Z that
And there was a
discovered
reviewer
her.
from The Guardian, this highbrow intellectual newspaper, so-called, who described 212 as artistic genius. Because apparently, that's the measure of a great song these days.
All right, we've been neglecting the fans a little bit here and the viewers. We've got some questions. Can Mark talk a little bit, if he knows, about an artist called Sun Ra, a jazz musician? You ever heard of them?
I have heard of Sun Ra, but I know very little about him/them. So sadly, I can't offer any
Sun
insights.
Ra.
And here's a good one. I want to talk about this. Wu-Tang's connection to the occult. The reason I am sat here is because I'm an MC. The reason I became an MC is because of Wu-Tang. You can see the Wu-Tang memorabilia all signed all around the room. I love Wu-Tang. And they recently broke my heart by promoting mask wearing, Glorious Cure, Get Your Maxine, or else.
All over his social media, he's
Nah.
working out in the gym wearing a mask, like deadlift and stuff like with a mask.
Yeah. Well, there's a reason why I used to name my public talks No More Heroes, because we've just got to let them all go.
Yeah.
Because anyone that's in the public eye, anyone who's famous, anyone who's a household name, anyone that people have heard of is controlled and is doing the bidding of their corporate paymasters. And sadly, there are no exceptions. We were talking earlier about whether it's possible that artists reach a point where they're no longer considered important assets or a threat.
Yeah.
And they are allowed to speak their mind a little bit because they're no longer considered to have that kind of influence. But while someone's at the top of their game and has that potential influence,
The reach.
Do you remember that Nas album that Nas made after he'd made Illmatic, all of those big albums, and then he made, I can't remember what it's called, but his whole album was about the global conspiracy, and it was his worst grossing album ever, and he didn't really do a lot after that. Do you remember this album?
Yeah, didn't it come out on the millennium? It was
Yes.
1999.
Yeah, I believe so.
Was it Nostradamus? Was it?
No.
Nas
It's not Nostradamus. It's actually an album many years after those ones.
Okay.
Oma Beats can help me out on this. Oma Beats told me about this album. I know you're watching in the other room. It's a Nas album that was after Nostradamus and Illmatic and his more famous ones. It was all about military industrial. It was very Immortal Technique-ish. It was great, but it flopped. Here's a good question.
Because Nas, sorry, just to interject there, Nas put out a record called Illuminati a few years ago.
Yes, he did, yeah.
And basically, he's trashing the idea that there's this network of secret societies and stuff. And
Oh, that
he's
must
just
have been the one who was redeeming himself to his masters afterwards. Oh, shit,
Yeah.
I didn't know about that.
So he's saying it's all conspiracy theory and don't believe everything you hear on the internet.
What's
and
that?
that smacks of him being pulled back into line
Yeah.
and told to do that in punishment for having spoken freely on the previous one.
I've seen that happen. Here's a question from Rahman the Writer. Rahman the Writer, we are fully aware you made a £5 super chat last week, and Oma Beats forgot to do your request. So we owe you one, Rahman the Writer. Why are musicians obsessed with Crowley, Mark Devlin?
I don't entirely know why they are. It's just the music industry is run by dark occultists.
I wouldn't say.
I've got
I
a
would
theory.
argue it's not just musicians that are obsessed with it.
It's the entertainment industry.
It can be other types of celebrities, but there are more musicians than any other type of celebrities that appear to be obsessed with the occult teachings of Aleister Crowley. And many of them have been very open about it, such as Jimmy Page of Led Zeppelin, David Bowie, Elton John. Jay-Z even wore a Do What Thou Wilt sweatshirt with that famous Crowley phrase.
Thelema is his ideology. Is that what it's called, Thelema?
Thelema, yeah.
Yeah. I've got a theory about this. The way that I conceptualise it, the reason that Aleister Crowley is at the top of the pyramid on the Beatles album and he's looked upon, what I think he is, I think he's sort of, how shall I say it? He's the messianic archetype of the dark occultist cult that proliferates the entertainment industry, particularly, whether that is the media, music, film, television.
One of his field.
Yeah, because we can talk about different metaphors to describe it. Russian dolls within Russian dolls, a spider's web. There are many different cults and sects, in my opinion, of what we're talking about. But for me, in the entertainment industry, he is looked upon as the Jesus character, because what was Thelema? Do as thou wilt. Now, what that means is basically you can do what you like, and the natural law will take its place. But then,
it's moral relativism.
It's a Satanist manifesto.
Moral relativism.
Master Lee in A Guardian says the teacher of his teacher met Aleister Crowley. Yeah.
Yes.
So I can say the teacher of my teacher met Aleister Crowley. That's quite a cool thing to say, isn't it?
If you want to boast that.
But anyway, he said he met him and he was unclean. He smelt. The understanding in light and dark occultists is that Aleister Crowley came up with a theory, but he didn't really practice what he preached because he just went for pure service to self, which isn't really what he was saying. Like, from my understanding of Thelema, and I'm not an expert on it, is like it's basically natural law. You want to do service to self, or you want to do service to others, here are the consequences. But he didn't really practice it. He went for the dark side. And I think, if we talk about
natural law.
Yeah, what are the dark occultists doing? They're attempting to sidestep or to subvert the consequences of natural law of karma. That's how
using these horizontalists.
Yeah, attempting to.
Yeah.
Maybe they have a different time span to how we understand it.
They've all got a big shock coming, I think, if they think they've got themselves off the hook.
Yeah, I think so. I'll tell you what, we've also got some questions that people have been sending into the Gmail.
I've got a question for you.
Go for it.
What do you think about Britney Spears?
Obviously mind controlled.
Oh, yes.
Mind controlled from a very young age.
Yeah.
Born into one of these important families where she was bred for stardom, for fame.
Yeah.
Showed all the signs of breaking her programming at that point where she went into the hair salon, got all her hair shaved off.
Yeah.
Classic sign of the programming starting to wear off. And she had to go back into the lab.
The MK Ultra program.
Reprogramming.
Rehab.
Yeah. Back to the mountain.
Yeah. And get reprogrammed and then put out there in the public eye again. We've seen this so many times with artists.
So, I mean, it's quite out in the open about her father being in control of her assets, her finances.
The conservatorship, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that is, to me, very odd that would be so public and out in the open, that it's not taboo.
Yeah, there was a legal case involving her family and this guy Sam Lutfi, who was said to be her manager, but obviously handler.
Wasn't her father trying to pass the powers to him?
They were grappling between them over who should get conservatorship of Britney. But, you know, the important thing here is the fact
rights to Britney. Who should get the revenue?
The important thing is that it's being argued about in the first place.
Yeah, precisely, yeah.
Because they're implying that she's not capable of handling her own affairs. Yeah. Why would that be? Because she's been mind-controlled to oblivion.
Bartering over an MK-controlled asset. Right, a question on the email from Zia Z, and it's like an essay, but let me just
sure is.
summarise this. A question: can you elaborate on what frequencies are beneficial or harmful in the regards of personal taste in genres of music? We've heard in some points talk about the manipulation of certain frequencies. There's a lot of debate around hertz being beneficial, like 432 and 528. I've heard about this switch of hertz that apparently happens. Mark, what is your understanding of this?
Yes, 432 versus 440 hertz.
Right.
432 hertz was the standard tuning pitch for musical instruments, where A equals 432. A is tuned to 432, and all the other notes fall into accordance with that. And that used to be the industry standard several decades ago. But there was a move by the Rockefeller Foundation, reportedly, surprise, surprise, to change the tuning pitch to 440 hertz.
Wait a minute, I didn't know it was the Rockefellers.
No, I didn't either.
Who else would it be?
When did this happen? What year was it supposed to happen?
Well, this was around the time of... There was an attempt to bring it in around about 1917.
And Mark, is this across the board, every genre?
It's the industry standard in terms of recorded music. So music that goes out
on the radio.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
so it was introduced around about the time of the Second World War successfully. And so all recorded music that came out on major labels from that point on for a very long time was recorded with 440 as the standard tuning pitch.
That's exactly the same time period when the cultural Marxists from the Frankfurt School came over from Germany to America to start debasing culture straight after Second World War.
So 432 is supposed to be a very harmonic frequency. It's used for healing, and musicologists and audiophiles talk about 432 as the frequency that should be used, and it falls into relation to 528, which is known as the love frequency. But 440 is anything but
satanic,
harmonious. It's discordant, and it puts you in a state of unease.
Yeah,
and it conflicts with the natural rhythms of the body, and just puts you in a state of duress and unsettled.
Have you noticed, right, the first
thing I need to know is my music made in 440? Oma Beats, is our music made in 440 hertz?
Have you noticed, I'd say, the last decade, there's been a huge push for this generic auto-tune, press the button. It's kind of a drone. It's not singing, it's not rapping, it's like just almost someone...
As a hip-hop fan, you know what we're talking about.
You know exactly what I'm talking about.
will.i.am and those lot.
It's not even hip-hop, is it?
But it's not hip-hop, but it's its own entity. Is that being put out on the public deliberately in line with this change of...
For me, as an MC, I see it as this. Now, it is fully possible
to me, it's not creative at all.
A top-level, commercially viable superstar millionaire rapper without having a single ounce of ability to actually rap. Now, back in the 90s, that was not possible. Even people like Mace and crap commercial rappers
Sick.
that people will rinse all day long, they still physically, vocally had
they were
the
good
ability to
rappers, mate.
rap.
They were good
They could
rappers.
still rap.
Yeah.
These guys now, they actually physically couldn't rap if you put $1 million in front of them.
It's all auto-tune.
So-called
it's all,
mumble rap.
Yeah.
and it's all. But do you know what I mean? It's a very minimal tune put to this drony.
Yeah.
Some of the beats are heavy.
mono,
It's what I call
lyrical-
demonic sonics.
It is demonic sonics
because it sounds,
thank
it just
you.
sounds horrific. It
I
sounds
literally heard a freestyle of 3 or 4 of these guys. And
It's
they were
all
big
over
names.
the radio.
Lil Uzi,
All over it.
Little Badass, they would have stupid names. And I heard them, and the DJ played the song. It was hard drill. It's like a big beat. And it's like, bitches that shit in the pram, and the fuck animals did. And all the only word I could basically sort of decipher was either bitch, nigger, or shank or drugs. And it was like, and everything else was literally just it was pure garbage. And I was like,
straight garbage.
it's not.
I've
That's
not been able
hip-
to listen to that stuff for years.
It's not hip hop culture. I tell you what, though, there are a few MCs that are doing that style. They're actually sick MCs.
I've got some conscious rap records in my
Yeah, we're
arsenal
really
there.
looking forward to that set. You're going to play about
And,
half an hour.
so-
I reckon he'll end up doing 45 minutes. It's Mark Devlin. You know he will.
And some of those tunes are in the style of all this stuff that One Extra plays now and Kiss FM play
Yeah.
and stuff. But it's incisive lyrics.
Have
It's
you ever heard of a
meaningful
guy
stuff.
called Prof?
No.
Prof. He's to me, he's like sort of like the new Eminem, but he's not new. He's a little white dude from Minneapolis, from America, and he does the sort
Oh,
of.
you played me one of his tunes.
Yeah, his
he's
videos
very
are super
good.
entertaining. He's
Yeah.
he's sort of like he is like, he's not like an Instagram rapper. But, you know, he has millions of views and stuff. I'd never really heard of him until I saw him on YouTube. The guy does that style, but he's actually super duper skilled. I would play one of his tunes, but we just get a copyright strike.
No.
So let me see what else we've got on Mark Devlin's slideshow of the dark occultism in the music industry. Up next, I'll call this out. They lie to our faces, but tell the truth cryptically. For those who are able to decipher the obfuscation. So the nightly news and the proclamations of politicians will be pure deception, and usually a 180-degree inversion of the truth. Wow, this rings true. Whereas it's in what we're entrained to think of as fiction or entertainment that the truth so often lies, albeit concealed with layers of symbolism and allegory. What is that from?
So what?
That's actually an excerpt from my last book, Musical
Wow.
Truth Volume 2, talking about this dynamic of how everything in society is satanically inverted. So these institutions that we're entrained to think of as telling us the truth are actually lying to us. And that which we're entrained to think of as mindless fun and entertainment, such as movies, TV shows, music, that's where the truth lies. But you're being told it subliminally in a cryptic coded way, so you don't realize that's what's going on.
Like a double bluff.
Yeah, well, it's also their way of, as they see it, telling you what they're doing and gaining your tacit approval for it.
Regardless,
Tacit acquiescence, as
they see
who was
it.
it said that in the comment section? They nailed it. We speak about this. We always come back to this almost every week, don't we, Andy PG? About the consent and about how these dark occultists believe in one way or another they have to gain our consent.
but it's that's
Always.
their belief.
I think this is
their
well.
belief.
We've talked about
Don't
this.
forget what we're talking about when you get raw, when you get right back to it. As we all know, we're talking about a sun cult. We're talking about a cult that worships the sun, a death cult, but their primary thing is worshipping the sun.
Or the black
That's what
sun.
they do. The black sun. Yeah, well, that's what they do. And for those who are able to decipher the obfuscation, they deliberately obfuscate the truth. That's what the media's for. That's what it's for.
Yeah.
But they believe that if they put out the truth, whether it's obfuscated or not, that they're skipping around natural law. But it doesn't work like that.
No, it doesn't.
And I can't believe for people who are this intelligent, and don't get me wrong, I've got full respect for the intelligence of these people. I don't agree with what they're doing, but these are very smart people.
I am really
They've got the
blown
whole-
away with how they've
got
pulled
the
this
whole
off.
planet wearing fucking surgical masks.
That is a feat.
But they are psychopaths.
Of course, I'm not
They
debating
are
that.
sick and diseased
But
and
they're very
soulless.
intelligent. So, and I can't believe people of that
On an
intelligence.
they're intellectually intelligent.
Academically,
they're not
yes.
holistically
No,
intelligent.
they're not, and they're not spiritual in any way.
Yeah.
I think these horizontalists are more like a machine. This is what I said to my speech.
I can't believe that they're that stupid that they think
No.
they
I
can
don't think
avoid
it's
the
thinking.
natural
I
law
think,
karmatic effects.
I think it's more like a knee-jerk reaction. The reptilian brain works on fight or flight.
Flawed. Me, I.
Yeah. I don't think
these
want,
Satanists hate the concept of a creator god. They hate the fact
Because
that
they
they're
want to be
answerable
God.
to the
'Cause they're- yeah,
creator.
that's
Because
it,
they
they're
want to be their
answerable.
own gods. And
Because they're accountable.
They carry themselves as if they're their own gods, but they still have this grudging acknowledgement of the fact that they are ultimately still answerable to the one
Creator.
creative force
Yes, they
in
are.
the same way that everyone else is. So they try and cheat and trick and weasel their way around it.
we're
with
getting
their
down to
little
business
loopholes.
here on Friday night. We're really getting down to business with Mark Devlin in the studio, and it's so true. They're like sat at the poker table, and every time they roll,
I bet Prince Philip.
everything is all in. It's all or nothing, and because they have nothing apart from the blueprint.
How do you think Prince Philip's doing right now?
I'm sure Jimmy Savile's really happy to see him again.
Do you think Diana's getting her own back?
I think,
Well, I'm
Diana's
sure.
been waiting for this moment.
I think their souls are being cleansed in the birthing chamber.
Or do you think they're back?
Who knows?
Do you think they're back already? Do you think? He's
Well, we're
back
assuming
already?
that those skin suits were animated by real sparks of the infinite creator, and they're not an occultic aspect
I
of the
think that
parasitic
skin suit
force.
from Prince Philip could have been a bit upgraded.
There's only so many fetuses you can crack
Who
open
knows
to
anything
regenerate
anymore?
your skin suit. Oh, what a sad day for the Sabbatean Frankist death cult that was when Lord
really
Sausage
was.
Fingers Senior finally officially kicks the bucket.
We were more sad about DMX.
I'm surprised. Yes, we were.
Oh,
Yes,
let's
we
talk
were.
about DMX. We can't
Shock G of Digital Underground today. Heard about that?
No.
Shock G passed away.
Oh shit! We had a comment earlier.
Yeah, we had a comment.
200 rappers in
passed
2020
away
died.
in 2020. 200. Yeah,
Wow.
200 rappers specifically.
Whoever put that comment earlier on,
whoever that was. At
can
the
we get
start
some
of the show.
background on that,
Be
please?
good to get the names, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
200
so,
rappers.
Black the Ripper.
Black
in
the
there.
Ripper, yeah.
Did we mention that in the last interview? We talk about Black.
I think we did, yeah.
touched
Very
on it.
suspicious circumstances
Yeah,
in Montserrat there.
yeah,
Was that the cannabis activist?
yeah. He was. He was
talking
Dank of
about-
England.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, Grime MC, Black the Ripper / Samson.
Anti-Coviot.
Well, he was actually anti 5G.
Yeah, talking about 5G.
Right. Okay, that was
as the
his-
story goes, he was inciting people to burn down the 5G towers. He was basically saying 5G is frying everyone's molecular structure using the 60 hertz. We're in dangerous territory now. That particular equation that basically shows you that 5G can create corona mass ejections in a human cell. You know about this? Do you know about corona? Have you heard about the coronal mass ejection? It's
Yeah.
Well, apparently, as the story goes, and I've seen very convincing scientific research that shows that 5G, when turned to a certain frequency, can create a small coronal mass ejection within organic cells, which basically creates the symptoms of, guess what? Yeah.
Well, I found it very interesting.
Shit,
that
we
the
could probably get
symptoms
taken
of
down for that. I
guess
hope I used
what
enough code words there.
were present in every single installation of radar, telegraph, every kind of upgrade of the
You've
communication
seen the graph
system globally.
going back 100 years.
Yeah.
Dr. Dolores Carhill shared this, I think.
Yeah,
Going right
yeah.
back to the 1850s when they first installed like radio signals,
Yeah.
up to Spanish flu. And I think there was
the
anything
same
like that.
symptoms is related to radiation
Yeah, so
poisoning.
MERS, SARS, swine flu, bird flu, they are all conjunct with the switch on of 1G, 2G, 3G, 4G. Have you seen this graph?
And always in the year of an American election.
Oh yeah,
But this
a bit
goes
like
back,
the
this
BLM
goes-
graph.
But this goes back.
a massive
this-
spike once every 4 years.
But guys, this goes back right to the installation of the first global communication systems. There was always a pandemic around the
Yeah.
time of.
I'm
Just
almost.
look into
I'm
that.
almost.
It's a whole rabbit hole in itself.
I'm almost tempted to get some of our other slides up from earlier on. Let's see what else Mark Devlin brought along. So there's a little one from Jay-Z. We've covered Jay-Z and Kanye.
No,
Bo-
let's
Bo-
see what,
Society.
let's see what Mark's got to say.
Yeah, no, we've
about,
got some more
that
here.
Okay, so
picture.
this is Robert Johnson.
This one.
Yeah, that's Robert Johnson, the blues musician. And he was really the origin of this idea of selling your soul for fame and fortune. So the idea is that he went to the crossroads, which is supposed to be the point where the spiritual world merges with the physical world. And according to this legend, this fable that's existed, it's a variation on the myth of Faust, the German story of Faust, of this guy that sold his soul in exchange for great worldly knowledge. In the music industry version of it, Robert Johnson wanted to be a very successful blues musician, blues guitarist, and he made a deal with the devil at the crossroads where he was promised great musical skills if he would give the devil his soul. And so that's the way the legend went down, and it's been repeated.
He wrote a
throughout
famous
the
song
decades.
about this. Is there like a folk song about this actual happening? About
There was The Devil Went Down to Georgia, wasn't it? It was a
this is the one I'm
country
thinking
song.
of. Yeah, country
I
song.
forget the name of the artist, but there was a song about this. And Robert Johnson died in very strange circumstances in 1938 on the 16th of August. And the 16th of August turns out to be a pretty unlucky date for musicians because it's the date that Elvis Presley is said to have died, although I don't accept that he did at that time. It's also the day on which Aretha Franklin died. So you've got Robert Johnson, who was known as the King of Blues, Elvis Presley, known as the King of Rock and Roll, and Aretha Franklin, known as the Queen of Soul, who all passed away on the 16th of August, which also happens to be Madonna's birthday.
If Inner Guardians was in on the chat, he'd start talking about the playing cards and the occult use of the playing cards. So you've got the king and the queen, 2 kings and 2 queens, all going down on one certain day. So the 4 suits of the playing card. Remember the whole presentation, Andy, that Lee did about the deck of playing cards and the occult meaning of a regular deck of playing cards?
I said to Lance before when I knew you were coming back in the studio, I said to Lance, I really want Mark to take a look at Inner Guardian's work because I really think he would be of interest with the
massive thank you for George that just donated £10 because he really enjoyed the stream. Massive thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you very much. If you want double LMC, you can do this on Super Chat. £10 is super generous, like £1 if you enjoyed the show. A £5, massive. £10. Wow, thank you very much, George.
Yeah, I really think Mark would like Inner Guardian's work.
Yeah, he's.
I'm not familiar with it. I'll have to take a look.
I'll show you. I'll send you his.
He's been in the shadows for some time.
Yeah, he's a close protection specialist, and he's basically. If you type in this guy's name on Google, it will say he is the godfather of UK MMA. A serious martial artist, close protection specialist, and now he's making videos about how occult knowledge can help us get through what's to come with the Great Reset. So it's very important work from Inner Guardians. What's next with the slides? Selling your soul to the devil. This has been repeated. Bob Dylan, Neil Young, all of the great folk singers talked about selling the soul to the devil, and that's sort of been repeated throughout the music industry.
Yeah.
Rappers talk
this
about
was the
it.
origin of the myth.
Right, so that's very interesting. Thanks for bringing that to our attention. Who knew it came from this particular dude? God, it looks a bit like George Floyd. Won't talk about that though, because that's just boring and divisive. Next. What we got here? Oh, we talked about Bambaataa earlier on.
Yeah.
Okay, so
that's, we can skip that.
We can skip that one. Right, the Beatles. Here is your specialty, and I'm just going to hand this one over to you, Mr. Devlin, because this is what you are known for, talking about the Beatles and Paul McCartney.
Yeah, well, the Beatles were, in my view, a construct of the Tavistock Institute. They were used for social engineering purposes. There are researchers who differ greatly on these viewpoints because the Beatles tend to create great interest among music researchers, more so than any other group. And you have people who make their entire careers off the back of studying this particular group. And many of them stick to the official biography, the official version of events, but the more daring ones go into some of these more occult and esoteric realms. And when you do, you find a whole load of stuff about the Beatles. It's a good friend of mine, Matt Sergiu, runs a blog site called The Occult Beatles. He's a very thorough researcher, and he takes a deep dive into all the symbolism behind the Beatles and all these nefarious affiliations and links. We've got a picture here of them with umbrellas, and they're in a black and white design, which is identified as a mind control trigger, going back into the world of mind control programming. And it would seem that John Lennon certainly was a product of mind control, as we were talking about with other artists earlier. And Yoko Ono would appear to have been put in as his handler, because they had a very strange relationship as a husband and wife. She was a few years older than him, and he used to view her as a mother figure. He used to actually call her mother, because he had some mother issues himself, having lost his own mother at a young age when she was run over and killed by an off-duty policeman, of all things, when he was about 14.
And then he's holding up the black and white. Interesting.
Yeah. So when it comes to Paul McCartney, there's been this music industry myth and legend, very similar to the Robert Johnson one, which has persisted for decades. I remember first hearing about this when I was at school in the 80s. Kids there were talking about it because there was supposed to have been a clue placed on the cover of the Beatles' Abbey Road album pertaining to the idea that the real Paul McCartney had been killed in a car accident in 1966 and had been replaced by an imposter who's been playing the public role of Paul McCartney ever since. And so this whole area of research is known as PID, or Paul is dead. And it's a very persistent conspiracy theory.
I know your thoughts on this, Mark. From what you've spoken of, I'm going to let you say it to the...
my thoughts have actually fluctuated.
I know exactly what you're going to say.
Over the years. So with my first book, Musical Truth Volume 1, I addressed this whole conspiracy theory. I went to town with all the clues that have been placed, or are said to have been placed, in Beatles records and on sleeves and things that have been said in interviews over the years, and they all seem to hint at the idea that the guy we have today is not the original Paul McCartney, and that the original Paul did indeed die. Then I got exposed to some alternative theories.
You were on board with that originally?
I was on board with that, yeah. When I first started out in this area of research, I bought that idea. But then I had a whole load of other evidence dumped in my lap that I had to take a look at as an open-minded, critically thinking researcher.
Professional researcher.
I had to take this on board. And people were showing me photographs and video footage that appeared to show that there had been two Pauls. So there were clearly two different guys. But they'd been at all stages of the Beatles' career, kind of fluctuating in and out of the role.
Is it the earlobe or something?
It's the eyebrow.
It's the eyebrow, yeah.
So where I'm at now, and this is what I'll be presenting in Musical Truth Volume 3, is I've revised my standpoint again, because one thing that bothered me was the fact that there are early photographs of a very young Paul.
That's right.
And he's got a very distinctive arched right eyebrow. And this was a family trait, because the real Paul McCartney's old man, Jim, had this arched right eyebrow, and it got passed on biologically to his son.
Very distinctive.
Yeah. So you got a young Paul McCartney, pre-fame, before the Beatles had broken through, who looks this way. And he looks very similar to the guy we've got today. And it leads me to think that the guy we've got today probably is the original and the real Paul McCartney. However, there was a point in the 1960s and possibly beyond where they inserted another Paul. I don't know why.
So it was kind of a double whammy.
A double bluff.
Yeah, a double bluff that he was taken out. The original one was taken out maybe because he wasn't playing ball initially.
Yeah, I don't know what the reason was for putting two in. Maybe it was just a mind game. It was a bloody mind fuck. Maybe they just wanted to see...
mockery.
Yeah, satanic mockery, and maybe they just wanted to see if they could get away with it. Or maybe it was part of some ritualistic stunt. I really don't know. But there was another Paul, and I think the one we've got there with the umbrella is, as far as I can make out, that is the replacement, the non-real Paul.
Yeah, the imposter.
And yet, most Beatles fans, or people that look into this idea, would tell you that's the real Paul.
That's the original.
And that he was replaced by the guy we have today.
Sure.
But my contention is that is the guy that they inserted, who is not the real Paul, who was put in there as a double. So he was slightly shorter than the one we've got today. He's more
slightly shorter, didn't have the eyebrow.
Yeah, he's more or less the same height as John Lennon there.
Yeah.
And he's got a fatter, rounder face than the Paul we know today.
Yeah.
He's got a much longer, thinner face.
Yeah.
And he's clearly
taller.
taller.
Yeah, because Paul McCartney, he's kind of known for his almost like beaverish features with his cheeks.
Yeah.
You know, he's got those...
He's got a very distinctive look.
Yeah, he has. Yeah. Very
and when you look back over photographs and video footage from over the years, you do see these two characters. So sometimes it's one of them, other times it's the other one.
But you've nailed it to who's who.
Well, that's the way I'm feeling about it now.
Yeah, sure. I'd say you're right.
Well, it differs. It differs with the viewpoint of various other high-profile researchers.
And again, it takes a real man to come out and say that you changed your mind and
changed my mind on a few things. Changed my mind on Q/Trump in recent weeks.
Oh God, if we want to get into that, I mean the whole Q psyop. Yeah, I mean we covered that in a couple of shows back. The psyops.
Yeah.
Show. I mean, I agreed with you actually, Mark. You were the first person which swayed my mind towards the idea that the Q psyop was to get the huge, vast number of armed, patriotic American patriots to stand down
Yeah.
because they thought someone else was doing it and they didn't have to.
Leave the firearms in the cabinet.
Yeah, so that there wasn't this civil unrest. But I mean, I'd have thought when Joe Biden got in and Donald Trump didn't after that huge...
Well, I'm just wondering.
I was very surprised.
I'm wondering how American patriots are staying so patient and so placid in all of this. Not that I wish for there to be an uproar and a bloodbath. That's the last thing I want.
Absolutely not. No.
But if they've all been sitting peacefully in platitude at the idea of this Q plan,
yeah. I mean,
how long are they going to continue waiting?
if you look at it, I mean, I looked at. I think Mark Passy did a video. It wasn't one of his. I think it was his last "What on Earth Is Happening" podcast, which wasn't really anything informational about esoteric teachings, but it was more of a rant of him. He had a clown horn there, and he was squeaking, saying, "You bobo wearing your mask."
Yeah.
But he was at the point then, which was just way beyond patience with the general public. But
Been there myself.
yeah, I know you had a couple of rants in your car, didn't you?
Yeah.
Recently, Mark.
Well, that original rant in my car really
Was
put
that
me on the
you
map.
did an anniversary of that
Yeah.
a year
Last
anniversary?
weekend,
yeah, that was
Yeah,
right.
1 year on. That wasn't really a rant. I was quite calm on that one.
Yes, you were. Yeah.
But the
it was
initial
funny
one
to
was
do
a
it in
rant.
your car. Yeah.
And it's how I was feeling at the time, and
Well,
it really struck a chord with a lot of people.
You had a lot of plans booked, didn't you? What plans did you have?
Yeah, I was supposed to be on an Australian speaking tour the
That's
week that
For your book
COVID
launch.
dropped. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was supposed to be going out there and doing presentations in Sydney, Brisbane and Perth. Got my flights booked. Been looking forward to it for months, planning it for months. I had quantities of books shipped over to Australia, ready for me to arrive.
So a lot of work went into that.
Yeah, and it was the very week that all the COVID bullshit happened that I was due to be travelling. I was supposed to be flying out on the 16th of March, and there was all this noise being made about borders starting to be closed, and this so-called virus was getting all out of control. And I had to make the very difficult decision of whether to travel,
Or stay
but
home
risk
with
not
your
being
family,
able to
yeah.
get back, or just play it safe, lose all my money, and stay where I was. And there was only one choice in the end. I had to stay where I was.
Of course. Fucking
Yeah.
What
so
an absolute fiasco. Imagine that spread over so many millions of people. All of the lost revenue.
everyone's got a story to tell.
all
Yeah.
the lost opportunities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just imagine the mayhem and the chaos and the suffering that's been caused by this stunt. It's just monumental. It's immeasurable. And the architects of this, whoever
Well,
they are, I've got all of that to
you're-
answer for. 'Cause
you're-
that's
I know
all going to
who
weigh
they are.
down on them.
You're most.
It's Lord Schwab.
You need to, Mark's video. We need to share Mark's video of "We Cannot," or what is it? Title Mark. We do not forgive, cannot forget.
Never forgive, never
Yeah,
forget.
that's it.
I
Yeah.
agree.
What we don't want is a situation where, if they stay true to their word, they are bloody liars, of course, you can't trust them.
On the
But they've-
solstice, yeah.
They've stated that on the 21st of June, all the restrictions go.
The
I
sun
don't,
cult, the solstice, sun cult, guys.
I
If
don't
you're
trust
If you're
them.
not awake to it now, the sun cult.
but even if it did, even if these restrictions got removed, the danger is that people will be so relieved that this nightmare is finally coming to an end. They just want to get back to normal. They're prepared to put this last year and a half behind them, just forget it ever happened and get our lives back and move on. That can't happen. Those that did this to us need to be held to account.
Hancock, Whitty, Valance,
I've said
Johnson.
I've
all
said
of them.
that this summer
Traitors,
is absolutely
the lot.
crucial, right? Because if what we think is going to happen when on June the 21st they give us our 3 or 4 months of peasant holiday time back when we've not got lockdown, many people, we used to call them normies or sheep, we won't call them that now.
we can't do that.
Those-
We
we're not going
can't-
to.
we
Those
really
people
can't
that
do
haven't
guys.
cottoned on yet, what I fear is that they're going to go back to their 3 or 4 months of COVID peasant holiday, and they'll be so elated, and they're just going to forget what's going to happen, like you just said. But not only that, what will happen again in maybe it'll be October 31st, maybe it'll be the next Hunter's Harvest Blue Moon, or maybe I'll be able to predict it when they do the hard lockdown this year, maybe. But when that happens, I really think that those people will just go into reset. Oh, lockdown again. They won't clock that there's a cycle. And I really fear that if we don't make a change this summer, when we go into that next cycle starts, I think, like what Yuri Bezmenov said in that meme, This process is irreversible. I think many people will be fully converted
People
to
will come to
Coveyism.
accept that every winter now we go into
well,
a
that's
lockdown.
what
It will
happens,
just-
isn't it?
And guys,
just be accepted.
don't forget, and this is pure speculation, right? I'm purely speculating now.
Everything
What
we
if-
speculate so far
what
came true.
if- Well, this isn't. I hope this isn't true, but we all know that they're going to try climate change lockdowns, right?
Yeah.
So what if the whole COVID-19 lockdowns were just predictive
Test run.
programming to get us ready for that test run for that?
I think
And that's going to be the real one.
Well, that's what we said in the Greta Reset.
Yeah.
When we come up with this concept of the Greta Reset, the Great Reset isn't just about finance. It's not just about riding off COVID. It's not just about carbon. It's all of those things being
Put together.
used as an excuse for one thing: totalitarian control.
Mark, can I ask you a question? I know you didn't want to talk, but we're already on it. Right, so
Code words, please.
all these people have now showed their hand. Yeah, the dark occultists have showed their hand, whether it's through Boris Johnson, Hancock Whitty, the Prime Minister of New Zealand, whoever. They've showed their hand now, and it's not getting... You can't put the cat back in the bag, okay?
Yeah.
We know that. But we all know that people like Boris Johnson, Hancock Whitty, they're going to take the fall for it. But does that really matter? Truly matter if some physical beings take the fall for it? Because really, the true people responsible are still there lurking in the background. And if this doesn't work, the COVID-19 thing, and they have to take the fall for it, so be it for them. Because they're just going to lurk in the background and prepare something else. Do you think it really matters whether Boris Johnson, Hancock, Whitty take the fall and are held accountable? Because the real people responsible, and I don't even think
That's
people
the
like
same as
Klaus
this
Schwab
question here. It's
are
like-
responsible. I don't think they're responsible. He's just a mouthpiece, same as Bill Gates, just a mouthpiece. The true ones responsible. We don't know who their names are. We don't even know what they look like.
Even Lord
And
Schwab
they're
is an
still
employee.
going to be lurking there when these people do, eventually take the fall.
Yeah. But we know where they've wanted to take things. As you say, the cat is out of the bag now. It ain't going
not-
back
no,
in anytime soon. And the likes of us that have researched this for years, we know where this is all headed. It's just happened a lot quicker than many of us expected. We knew what the New World Order master plan was. We've got it expressed now as the Great Reset and
Agenda 2030.
Agenda 2030.
Agenda 21, yeah.
It's all headed to the same place,
documented.
which is totalitarianism, as you say, top-down, complete
Operation
control.
Lockstep, all of it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I really don't feel they're going to be able to succeed now because it's just they've shown their hand too much. Too much
Do you
has
think they
been
were
revealed.
too hasty? Do you
Yeah.
think they needed another 20 years of programming?
Absolutely, yeah. I've heard it suggested that this agenda was, well, it's there in the name, Agenda 2030.
And they brought
that
it
everything
forward.
they've done in 2020 was intended to be done in 2030, but they felt they might not have that 10 years, so they had to go all out and bring it in 2020.
Wait a minute. Are you trying to suggest that Lord Schwab has been too ambitious?
Well, he is 83. Maybe he thought he wouldn't live to
Lord
93.
Schwab's 83.
Yeah, I don't think it looked. He's just
I didn't
a
realise he was
mouthpiece.
83. I
He's
thought he
just
was
a
like-
mouthpiece.
Well, he
Same as-
drinks a lot of.
If we know
he drinks a
their
lot of.
name-
He's only a Soros.
If
Yeah,
we
yeah,
know
yeah.
their names, they're not responsible. If we
Yeah,
know who they
sure.
are, they're not responsible.
Well,
Yeah, agreed.
okay. Well, I reckon I could name a couple of people above Lord Schwab. You're
However,
talking about
I am interested in people like the perpetrators of 9/11, i.e. Comey, and people like that. Is it Comey who was in charge of
FBI.
where the planes were headed? Sorry, not
wasn't it
Comey.
Rumsfeld?
So, no, who was in charge of the to instruct the planes to do their
No,
their-
Rumsfeld.
Was it Rumsfeld?
Yeah, Donald Rumsfeld.
So I would argue that he is a dark occultist with some level, because it would take someone at a high level to
Stop
actually.
grinding my chair on the table.
It would take someone at a
But
high
again,
level.
we've heard his name. We know who he is. So
Yeah. But I
can he
was-
be that high up in the pecking order?
actually, yes. Good argument.
Yeah, because I used to think that by default, all of these sort of key players would be what we would describe as a dark occultist. But a dark occultist doesn't just mean someone that's gone to the lodge and wanked in a coffin. It doesn't really just mean someone that's been there when something else happened.
No.
It means someone that's an actual a manifester,
Practitioner.
a practitioner, someone that is setting out plans, laying down things that are going down the pyramid, and then manifesting themselves into physical reality, rather than being a part of the structure and taking an order from the dark hooded figure at the lodge or whoever, you know. So it's an interesting thing to talk
Because
about.
I don't personally think Bill Gates is that hard. Someone fucking pied him back in the 90s. Someone, 3 assassins with pies got the guy.
I think
He's
Bill
not
Gates
that
is a
protected, mate.
supremely physically
How long do you
feeble
think he'd
individual.
last in jail?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't think he's that. I don't think he's that. If he was that important, he would have been protected. There was no way someone could throw pies in his face walking in a courtroom or wherever he was doing
Let's
it.
get back to the email questions, and it's sort of the same. Steve says, can we ask Mark Devlin, is he positive about the future, or are we literally doomed to a dystopian nightmare? Thanks, Rise Above.
It's nothing like some doom and gloom questions here, right?
Straight to the
I
jugular.
know all about doom and gloom.
Straight to
trust
the
me.
jugular, Mark.
I have to believe that there's a positive end to all of this. I've got a family, so I have to remain focused on an outcome that is going to be beneficial to humanity. But looking at the way things are panning out, I truly don't believe that they're going to be able to take this plan through to full fruition, because they've just made it too obvious now.
Do you think they'll get a bit in, Mark? Do you think they'll be able to get, like, a V passport or something, like,
They already have.
a little bit of control?
They already
Yeah,
have.
I
mean,
like to
globally-
think there's going to be some pushback on that. We haven't had the summit yet.
Sorry,
we
that,
haven't
that
had
was
the...
just an example. Like, do you think that there's loads of parts to their plan that we haven't talked about yet? But do you think they'll get?
They
you're gonna
haven't
get
managed
bits
to
and
do
bobs done?
one thing consistently globally yet. Not even COVID at 1984. There was still a good handful of countries spread across
Tanzania.
different
Putin.
continents, not just the African ones that lost their
No,
leaders.
Putin.
Belarus, Cambodia. Cambodia literally has 0 COVID deaths.
Some South American countries as well. I
Well,
believe, or
Brazil, Bolsonaro was not doing COVID
No.
for the first year. Then they had all those apparent mass burials, which all were shown to be fake. It's like what we showed about. I don't know if you watched the stream Away Down. India, apparently they're burning piles of bodies to such an extent that the furnaces are melting. That's what the Daily Mail.
I've never
That's
heard
what
of a
we're told.
furnace melting. I'm a chef.
Look,
I know how ovens
let me
work.
find it. Let me find it. Where is it? The.
Are you all right to talk about this, Mark? We don't want.
Sorry, we weren't going to do COVIDism, were we?
Well, I feel there's going to be a lot of low-level politicians that might have been given the heads up that something was coming, but they weren't fully clued in on how extensive it would be.
Right.
And there's
Yeah.
going to be people like this that are now starting to wonder
Who
what's going
who
on.
originally
We
complied.
weren't told about
Yeah.
this. This is affecting my life and my family's lives now. I'm not with this anymore. And I like to think there's going to be some pushback from those kinds of people. Also in the mainstream media, so-called journalists must be starting to wonder what's going on now. They're not fully up on what the plan is.
Not like your
Maybe-
Piers Morgan.
Well,
He's
in
right
the
on
Guardian,
board.
Piers Morgan's
sometimes
a key
says
player.
the enemy of the enemy is my friend, right? And what Mark just touched on there, I had this conversation with the missus the other week. I said, imagine all of these guys that are high-level civil servants and the politicians. They thought, they're going to do this for about a year.
They're gonna cream
We'll
it.
cash in.
Yeah,
We'll
yeah.
get some nice track and trace contracts. We'll get some really nice bogus PPE contracts. We're literally going to make millions. And then this will happen. But 12 months down the line, what they're starting to realise
Looking
is
so rosy now, is
the
it?
Soviet Union is a slightly little bit more all-encompassing than just rinsing the peasants for 12 months while you guys line your pockets. Little did you know.
Exactly that. Yeah.
Little did you know, the Great Reset doesn't have room for millionaires
So they're
and
being
bureaucrats.
played as well.
It only
That's right.
has room for the super elite, the what's it called? The was it not venture capitalists? Stakeholder capitalists. That's what they call it. It only has room for the stakeholders. And guess what? If you're not,
Peasantry.
you are the peasantry. Yeah. So sometimes these
It's a
greedy
numbers
bastards might be our friends. The enemy of the enemy.
It's a
is our
numbers
friend.
game. There's very few of the real controllers, the real architects of this narrative, and there's lots and lots of us.
Mark, what do you think's going on with the Queen?
I have no idea, mate.
What do you think?
I
What do you think's
wish I
going on
knew.
with the Queen in regards to the COVID Union? Do you think she's been tucked away because obviously she knew what was going to go on? But do you think she's been tucked away, out of the public eye because she's getting old? Because obviously there could be some fucking huge riot pushback that the.
Is she even still
Well,
alive?
I don't know what's going on there. I mean, a few months back, I thought she'd been removed one way or another, whether she died or whether she'd been arrested or just removed from the scene. She's been seen out supposedly in public recently at Philip's funeral and stuff.
She
even
supposedly
though-
knighted Mr. Tom, Captain Tom.
Yeah,
Word nerd,
yeah,
you've got
yeah.
to stop jumping in, mate. You're affecting the stream. I'm really sorry.
Although she did appear on a Zoom call the other week,
Did she now?
talking about the vaccine.
Did she?
We
that was-
played that one, didn't we? We
That
played
was clear,
Did she?
clear CGI.
It was a deep fake, wasn't it? Thank you very much,
And,
Mark.
what,
very much a
and
deepfake.
like, what was going on at Christmas time? We covered it on the show.
Yeah, the Channel 4
With
deep
that
fake.
Channel 4
They showed you how it was done.
Come on.
Revelation of the method.
Come on.
Yeah.
Look at Lord Sausage
So I
Fingers.
don't know what's going on there. They've been using a fake Prince Charles. They've
For
been using
some
an actor.
time. For
Yeah,
some
yeah.
time,
Yeah.
yeah.
So are you saying that the guy with the really swollen fingers is not the real Prince Charles? Is Lord Sausage Fingers the imposter? Because have you seen the pictures of his fingers, Prince Charles?
I've missed that.
Right,
Get
please.
one up, get
no,
one
right,
up. Oh,
okay.
yeah, no, I'll get it.
You Jamie for me, please. So since we're just doing the basic rabbit hole assault course here, right? What is your thoughts on that guy who appeared last year who claimed to be the real new king of England?
Oh, Greg Hallett.
Greg Hallett,
Yeah.
please.
Well, I've met
take it
him.
away.
I've met Greg.
You've met Greg Hallett?
Yeah, I met
oh
him.
Oh my god.
I met him a few years ago when I was doing a presentation in Norfolk. I was doing a presentation based around my book. And I ended up, after the talk, in this house, sitting up late at night with Greg Hallett. And he showed me his alternative family tree.
Right.
And his claim is that the royal bloodline was usurped round about the time of Queen Victoria by the Rothschilds, would you believe?
Yep. Yeah, I know.
And
You're right.
so the family tree veers off in a different direction in terms of the true parentage and the true ancestry of everyone involved.
Anyway, the reason we had a little break is because Mark was coming back with well, I have this camera here. There he is, and I'll turn this one around to me. That's me. That's better.
Get my notes
Right,
straight.
set list. What were some of the tracks in that set? Because everybody is asking.
See how old school I am. I'm just grappling with physical CDs here.
Actual physical
Sitting all over the
CDs.
place.
How old school is that?
It's kind of mid-range, isn't it? Because vinyl is proper old school. This was the next stage, but I never went fully digital. So I started with Elias Clay, Wake 'Em Up. Great female artist who I met at an Acapulco in Mexico in 2019. She was supporting Immortal Technique, actually. She was the support act. But
Wow.
she put on a great show, and she's a very switched-on, conscious rapper, makes some great tunes. Went into Diabolic, America. People were feeling the lyrics on that.
That was dope. I've never heard that one before.
Indeed. He's done his research. I gave you J. Rue the Damager, You're Playing Yourself,
Another classic.
from back in the 90s, DJ Premier production. A little piece of Crooklyn Dodgers, Return of the Crooklyn Dodgers, also DJ Premier on the beat. I gave you Diesel Automatic, awesome MC out of Montenegro in Eastern Europe there.
He's actually linked with a couple of Bournemouth artists. One, namely Aite. Do you know him? You know the guy I'm talking about. Ayite. Aite. He did a tune with Diesel Automatic. A guy from around here. Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah, Diesel does collabs with everyone going. So that was called Here I Stand, using a classic beat. I think I then went into Rashid, Chapel and Buckwild with Mass Media, which is a track from their album that dropped a few months ago. I gave you Diesel Automatic in combination with Joe Murray, who's an MC out of New York, and that was called Natural Law, plain and simple. What else did I play?
Everyone in the comment section is like, we're taking notes.
Yeah.
Yoji33, big up Yoji. I saw him a video on his unicycle today. He
Yeah,
said
I
the
think
lyrics were
anyone.
amazing.
I think anyone who makes a tune and names it Natural Law needs to be heard.
Absolutely.
Indeed. You heard Tom McDonald, Fake Woke.
He's killing it at the moment, Tom McDonald.
He really is. All about the lyrics on that one.
Yeah.
Then Guidance. Some people asking who that artist was. The track was called Psychological War.
He had a big vaccination tune.
That's
that
it.
got
Like,
banned,
I remember
banned
you
from
played me
YouTube.
that when you picked me up for the show. Like a few, in the early days of the live stream.
Big up Guidance. I'm really gutted that my Coviet freestyle didn't get banned. Really, really displeased about that. Should release the bars.
Earlier on in the selection there, I gave you Polar the White, also featuring Diesel Automatic, called Fed Up.
Polar the White. I'm going to remember that name. Haven't heard that one before.
Yeah. And the last one there was a cut from Busta Rhymes, and that featured Rakim and Chris Rock on the intro. Extinction Level Event. That was from his album that dropped at the end of last year. And Busta Rhymes does seem to have a knack for prophesying catastrophic events, doesn't he? He's been doing it for
Almost
quite a number
like
of
somebody let him know.
years. Almost like, yeah, he was clued in on what was coming. But he was doing that back in the 90s. there were like 3 albums in succession that were all talking about disastrous events to come. And then we had 9/11. Imagine that.
No coincidence there.
As we saw earlier on what was the album cover earlier on? We saw the Twin Towers going down on that you showed
Oh,
us.
the coup, yeah.
Yeah, I was
Party
actually
music.
just trying to get up PowerPoint since we had that savage computer crash earlier on, just before Mark Devlin was about to drop his live set. Lo and behold, the whole system here at the Rise Above studio utterly failed us.
My usual luck.
And we had to, the denying force manifested itself in a really powerful attack, and we had to restart everything. So it's been an awesome chat tonight. We've covered like contemporary music, rap artists, pop artists like Madonna. We've taken it right back to people like The Who, to Foul or Paul McCartney, the Beatles.
It's been a Friday evening well spent.
Yeah, we've weaved in Aleister Crowley. It's been absolutely awesome.
From Robert Johnson to Cardi B.
Yeah, Brian Harvey.
Yep.
Absolutely superb. I'm going to end it with, I think we actually got through most of your slides, but I'm going to show a couple of pictures on the screen of someone that's come on the scene fairly recently. And bear with me just a moment while I reinitiate the sharing of the screen. Someone might know that, this is a young artist. She's probably 19 years old now. Billie Eilish. And let's just go to a different view here. I bet it's going to jump to the start of the slideshow when I do that. No, it didn't. Right, yeah. Billie Eilish. What do you know about this character?
Not a whole lot, to be honest. I've kind of deliberately veered off from researching her too much because I don't like wallowing in this stuff for too long. But she's just the latest manifestation of a deeply sick industry, obsessed with dark occult ritualism. And she's aimed at the kids now that are getting into music for the first time. And the agenda just seems to get darker and darker.
Go back, Lance. Just
with every
look at that
passing
on
year.
the right. I mean, come on.
I mean, this is what
I
I just do like literally a 30-second Google search because I don't want to play other people's videos too much. We do it with Good Virgin.
I think that's someone fucking that picture.
What, this one here?
Yeah, I think that's real.
It does look a little bit manipulated.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's dark stuff either way, isn't it?
Yeah, it's all promoting that big agenda.
Not really what you want your kids
it's
paying
satanic.
attention
Look at
to.
it. It's all satanic.
It doesn't
straight
really
to
get
tape.
much more satanic than that.
No.
That's
Now,
right.
obviously, there's the old
So in your face.
argument that it's always been there. Alice Cooper, who Ozzy Osbourne used to bite bats off heads. Has the satanic influence always been there in the music industry, in all contemporary music?
I would say it has, but they've just got more and more extreme with it in recent years. And every time I think they've scraped the bottom of the barrel as far as it's possible to do, they take it even lower. They just plumb the depths of the cesspit in terms
Yeah.
of what they serve up as allegedly entertainment and culture. It just makes you wonder where they've got left to go. I'm sure they'll find somewhere.
Yeah, because if you look at like Cardi B and compare her to say like, okay, who was the one before Nicki Minaj? Now Nicki Minaj could rap, and she was very explicit and very dirty, and was obviously promoting, everything that's perverse. But with Cardi B, they really turned up the notch to like, okay, we've got it to full volume with Nicki Minaj.
Yeah, she's a full hoe.
Let's turn it up to 11. Let's get literally a dangerous psychopathic criminal hoe that boasts about sort of setting people up and robbing them in her past life. She seems very unstable. If you met her on the corner of the street in Compton and she was saying, "Give me some dollars, bitch,"
Do you know what?
Wouldn't want to fuck with
Do
a
you know
person
what?
like Cardi
I
B.
reckon Little Kim would headbutt her the fuck out.
I reckon Missy Elliott
I
would
reckon,
literally body slam her, DDT.
They did that with Rihanna, didn't they? Bitch better have my money.
Yeah.
She went from if it's loving that you want to bitch better have my money.
Yeah. Well, look what they did. Miley Cyrus. We talked about
Miley Cyrus, God,
Britney
she
Spears.
is.
Trouser Snake. What was the other? Shakira. All of they were Disney project. Most of those.
Yeah,
So we're talking
yeah.
MK Ultra, basically
Mouse Club.
archetypally.
Yeah.
Right.
Happy days, eh?
Happy days. So I just want to bring it full circle because it's been great having you here tonight, Mark. So thank you so much for making the journey to physically come here.
Sure.
So good to have a physical meeting in the Rise
Absolutely.
Above studio. But in the comment section, in our messages before you came, you're like, do you know what? And we did break the rule. You said no COVID, no virus tonight. To keep things light, let's talk about dark satanic rituals and occultism. And we did. We kept it light, but it was super dark, and we've had an absolutely awesome evening. Thank you so much for coming, Mr. Mark Devlin.
Well, thanks for having me, and it's made a nice welcome change not to talk about the usual stuff, even if we did go into, dark and devastating territory. But that's what I'm covering in my book at the moment anyway, and anything is better than talking about the obvious. So it's good to pass through tonight. Just like the old days, like the before times, like things used to be.
Yeah, where people would communicate virtually and then to
seeing
meet
the
in
whole
person.
of someone's face.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been an absolute pleasure, mate, and thank you so much for coming. Any
Thanks for
final
hosting me.
thoughts before we discuss Mark Devlin Part 3?
Final thoughts? Not really. Just I'm knackered. That's about it.
You're absolutely knackered. You smashed the set. Oh, any final questions before we let Mark off the
You wanna
hook
ask
and send it back to
the
Travel
big
Lodge?
question. So, are you familiar with a YouTuber called
Oh, the
Lars?
old-
How do you pronounce his
the
actual
ultimate-
name, Lars?
He's Flemish. On YouTube, he calls himself Godj Vlamast, and he's a creator who's made a series of about 30 or 40 videos. He's got about 30,000 subscribers. He's a badass like you. This is how much I like him, Godflesh. And if you haven't seen this guy before,
No, I don't know him.
we will play a video as we say thank you very much for coming, and we sort of send you on your way. I seriously recommend that you start watching this guy's videos from about back here. He talks about
No, from the whole thing, man. You need
the whole
to
thing.
watch the whole thing.
He presents a theory that actually broaches the divide between people that think the Earth is flat, people that think it's a globe, and people that just think that NASA is fake. Because I'm not a flat earther. None of us here are flat earthers, but we all know that NASA is a bit super fake. I'll leave you some homework, Mr. Mark Devlin, before we invite you back next time to the Rise Above Studio. We'll play one of his videos. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think
Yeah.
we should play the first one.
Should we put it on?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what
'cause
Maddox is
we
on
always
it,
play this guy's videos. Everyone on the stream absolutely loves him. As we say goodbye to Mark Devlin and we wish him on his way.
Look, we've got
anyone
one more question, Lance.
Oh, you got one more
This
question?
is from the whole Rise Above team, and particularly this is going to from Master Lee's influence.
Go on.
So, Mark, I know you didn't want to talk about it, but we have got to I can't let you leave without, and I'll miss the opportunity to ask you. So everyone's getting the V word, yeah. Everyone's getting the glorious cure.
Yeah.
So, what do you think of the possibility that this might be, in the realm of cutting us off with our source kind of thing, but at the same time being an upload to a synthetic universe, which is being created around us with this new 5G tech? Where it's your transhumanism, but where your consciousness gets uploaded, because they're already promoting this kind of what is it in China they've got at the moment? You can they can make a hologram or something of your deceased child.
We're going to be talking about this next week, and
Yeah.
that's 5G technology, where they bring back a deceased relative in a chatbot algorithm and they make a hologram.
in a synthetic universe.
Next week, I'm going to be telling you guys about 6 and 7G technology. We're going to talk about the coming singularity, the IoT, the Internet of Things, and what transhumanism actually is.
So what do you think about that, Mark, about where this could lead? When you've got characters like Elon Musk running around telling you he wants to implant a neuro link into your brain, directly into your brain, where could this lead in the future? Like, not initially, but in the future, where do you think this could lead? Do you think this could go full-on Matrix style, as in people are actually, their physical body is just dormant and their consciousness is living in a complete other realm?
Well, anything is possible, brother. And transhumanists like Ray Kurzweil and Elon Musk have been saying for a while, they've been talking about uploading your consciousness to a cloud and how they're going to achieve that. And I never really considered that it might be achieved through the V word. But now certain people that have taken it have spoken of they've removed God.
Something is not right with
it's as if it's cut them off from their innate connectedness to creation,
fun
to
facts.
source.
to nature, to source.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's something in there that's destroyed that spirituality within people. So maybe that's how it's going to be achieved. I don't know.
Interesting thoughts.
I think we're all on the same page, but we really don't know.
Something
We know
very
what the
sinister.
implications are. We know what the dark occultists want to do They want to steal our soul and upload it into a synthetic universe.
Don't forget what we're sold as technology. They are well advanced
But
compared to what is.
they have no creation and the PG.
No,
They
of
have no
course.
intuition. They have no spark of
That's
creation.
why they need us still.
Yeah,
they still
they're
need
machines.
us. That's why they haven't killed us all already.
Anyway, we could carry on all night, and we're not finished yet, but Mark Devlin needs to hit the travel lodge. He's finished.
All right.
Mark, thank you